It's one of my favorite topics, honestly. It's because it was the North Star from when I started the agency.
Welcome to the Insurance Refocused podcast, where we're highlighting real agent stories and how they are innovating to respond to the changes and challenges happening in the independent insurance industry. My name's Lindsay, and I can't wait to introduce you to my amazing co-host, who just so happens to be my mom, Carey Wallace. Mom, how you doing today?
I'm doing really well, Lindsay. I am back in Hilton Head, back and forth, but having a good day. It's sunny out, and I'm happy to report. I don't know if I shared this on the podcast yet, but as a result of the hurricanes that came through, we got very, very, very little damage. I do not want to take away from the people who had incredible damage, but we had a couple trees come down that did not hit our house, but impacted our backyard and the lagoon behind us. But we did have some branches come down that made a hole in our roof. And that then brought raccoons to join our family, which was amazing. So I'm happy to report that today I got here and 2 raccoons were trapped so far, which means we might be able to get our life back and not have these unwanted guests with us. So listen, the day is looking up. How are you doing, Lindsay?
I'm doing good. When I was in, I don't know if I've ever told you about this, but when I was in grad school, the building that I worked and did all my classes in, we had raccoons in our ceiling. And we would be during class, right? So our classes are night classes. And after it would get dark, they would be running laps above our classroom and they would fall through the ceiling. So at least that's not happening, because that would be really disastrous if we were recording this podcast and a raccoon just fell on your head, because it's happened.
So I'm really happy that we're recording this after the raccoons are trapped, because that would have kept me up at night. I'm guaranteeing that would not have been something I needed to go to bed with, since I'm the only one here. And, listen, I'm adjusting to living in the South. Raccoons in my ceiling are not something I anticipated at all. So anyway, well, I'm super excited today. I have had the pleasure of spending a couple of hours with our guest this week, and it is the highlight of my week for sure. Today, we are welcoming Billy Wagner to the podcast. Billy, it is our honor to have you on today.
Oh, it's my pleasure to be with you. And, if you go back and think about a lot of people that are in this industry, I've never heard anyone say anything remotely negative about you, Carey, and you have led yourself in a way that is where you always add value. And I've been studying this concept of high frequency, and you have high frequency. You add value. You have a great niche, and so I'm honored to kind of be with you. And had the pleasure of meeting Lindsay this year, which was amazing. She lit up the room. She's very sharp, and so just honored to be with you both. I'm just incredibly grateful that our paths have crossed, and happy to spend some time, trying to add value to your audience today.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Billy. I will tell you, being together for a couple of days in a mastermind, I feel the same way about you. It's like when Billy Wagner speaks, the room hushes and listens and leans forward and hears what you say. And I think that that's an incredible trait that you've built and you 100% deserve. You're also very intentional of what you say and how you have grown your business, and admired by many, many people. Your model's different than the agencies that I look at every single day, but the core to how you grow your business is something to be definitely admired. So, hey, before we jump into the topic that Lindsay and I both want to dive pretty deep into, tell me about you and the recent hurricanes. How has that fared, and how about your clients? How is everyone doing as a result?
Yeah, I mean, we're pretty used to it in Florida. I think people that are outside of Florida, they see the weather people giving you these, giant hurricanes that are taking over the entire state all at once. And, we've been through so many of them, and, we're lucky that we're tucked away a little bit in Jacksonville. Actually, the statistic is that since 1965, we haven't had a true hurricane hit us. And so, yes, they have gone over, our area, but after they have slowed considerably down and we get, maybe 40, 50 mile an hour winds. And so we're very prepared. Now we've had a lot of clients that obviously we're not so lucky. Lots of folks, we have thousands of clients directly in that area that it hit. And so lots of, flood damage, lots of power outages, lots of phone calls, lots of trying to help people get through that. So, we're used to it, but it is definitely still something that, slows you down completely because, number one, you just shut down. So you're like, okay, what do you do? And then after the storm, then it's kind of like you got to get into that mode of like helping people. And so it definitely like drives a train through the agency operation, but it's
Sure.
kind of what we're here for. And that's when we got to show up.
Yeah,
It is
for
actually your
sure.
time to shine, right?
Yeah.
Hmm. The claims process is really when independent agents are built to shine, I think. As long as you have a streamlined process for that and it's not just haywire, that's what really makes a good agency in my mind.
Yeah. One of the things that we did, this is just a quick value add. I'm always trying to think about how we can add value, but if you're an agency, running an agency and you're getting large claims like that, you do have to have that system, as you said. So we have all the templates kind of ready to go. We have the autoresponders in case we lose power. But what the biggest thing that we did was we created relationships with the head of claims at every organization that we do business with. And so we don't use that
Hmm.
unless we need to. But if somebody is having a problem, we can go directly to them and say, this is an issue, you better solve it. And we tell our clients, like, if they don't do what they're supposed to do, they're going to regret they ever heard your name because we're going to grab them by the throat and say, you better take care of them. Right. And so that's how
Right.
you can serve. But unless you have that relationship, you're going to play phone tag. You're going to wait on hold for
Right.
45 minutes. We send one email and then it just goes down the chain. So that's a really important thing to be ready
Yeah.
with that if you're facing that large amount of
Mm.
claims.
So we think about relationship, this being a relationship business when it's between the agency and the client, but it's so incredibly important to think about that in every direction, in every way you touch. I think that's an incredible point to make. So Billy, here's the big thing that as I build my business, as I work with agents that are building their business, that I I think when I think of you, the coaching that you've provided to others, that you've actually mentored me some on, is this idea of how do you move from working in your business to working on your business and being the CEO versus the person that's doing everything. And I think you've artfully done that over time. It did not happen, you didn't wake up one day and that happened, but you did things in order to position yourself. So I'd love to dig into that and have you give a little bit of background of, where you started, how you got to that place, and then we're going to dig into that topic. Make
Yeah, I
sense?
love it. It's one of my favorite topics, honestly. It's because it was the North Star from when I started the agency. And, if I go back to those early years, it was 2006, so it was about 18 years ago. I started a less than scratch agency. I had zero clients, zero relationships, zero clue, honestly, what I was doing. And so I ended up working for free for 6 months for somebody else. But in the first 2 or 3 years, you just have to put your head down and you have to grind and you have to kind of shut out the noise and you have to focus on creating a great experience. And that was what my goal was. Is I was the operator. I was taking out the trash, I was cleaning the bathrooms, I was doing the marketing, I was writing the policies, I was doing the admin, I was doing everything. And so, that point of time, I knew that I would have to do that for 2 or 3 years, right? Because the margins are small in the industry and it takes a while to build them up. And so, but my vision was after about 2 or 3 years, I lifted my head up and I went, okay, what do I need to do to get this agency to where it is running with a support team? So a lot of people call it like, I'm going to start to scale, right? And so one
Mm-hmm.
of the things that I realized that I had to do first was I had to solve the people situation, right? And if you solve the people situation, it pretty much will solve the majority of your problems. And so if you look at the foundation, if you're an agency owner that's in the very beginning, the foundation needs to be create a great experience and understand what that is. And we can go deeper on that, but also like what is it about solving the people problem? Like how do you solve the people? And like no one wants to get into our business on purpose. Like I feel like for 18 years I've been tricking people to get into this business and then they thank me later They're like, oh God, thank you for tricking me because I didn't know why I wanted to be in this business, but you shared a vision with me. And so I studied the people thing and I solved that problem. And when we put an application out for someone, we get 300 applicants and we go from 300 to one and we pick the very best person. We've got an amazing team of ninjas and I would rate every one of them an A player. Now, that is not an easy thing to accomplish. We were at a leadership conference earlier this week and the statistic was 62% of your people are not engaged and 15% are actively disengaged, which means 77% of people that are running an organization have team members that are not engaged or actively disengaged. So, how do you solve that problem? And so, that to me is the foundation. Now, over the last 5 or 7 years, I've worked on some other things, which is building them a pathway. What is our purpose as an organization? How do you provide them personal growth? And then I've mastered how to do processes and systems. And the last thing I'm trying to do is leadership. So there's a lot there, but that's
Yeah.
how I think about it. That's how I think about how do you become a CEO is those are the most important things.
When you talk about solving the people problem, let's go a little bit deeper into that. So what did that look like as you solved the issue going forward? Like, how did you do it?
Yeah. So one is I built a process, right? I built a system for recruiting people. And initially it started out about 6 or 7 steps for
Mhm.
the hiring thing. And every time I made a mistake, I added a step, which is why we have 21 now. So that's how many mistakes I
Whoa.
made. But basically, I have this approach of land, air, and sea that we're going to use every single available outlet to get as many applicants in the funnel as you can and to create this environment where this is not an easy job to get, that this is very rare air that we have here. We protect it like
Mhm.
with everything and we don't let anyone in. And so you're gonna have to go through a gauntlet to get in. And they're like, well, why should I? It's a mindset. It's why like nightclubs have lines outside their door. It's like, oh, I want to go there. Why is everyone waiting in line? You create that kind of environment of like,
Yeah.
okay, what's special there? And you make sure that the people on your team are growing and they have purpose and you know what their wishes, dreams, and what they want to accomplish. And you help them get there and they start sharing that story. And so, some of the ways though, just tactically that I would share with people is, there's a lot of new technology. There's a company called Handshake, which is you can work
Yeah.
directly with colleges and create a
Mhm.
profile. I don't carry a business card anymore. The only card I carry is if I'm walking around in the community and I see somebody that has an awesome attitude, great personality that connects, I hand them a card and I say, I'd love to talk to you if you're ever looking to change careers. So that's the belly to belly recruitment. I created relationships with. It's almost like if you were creating a niche market and you go, okay, I'm creating a niche market. Here's what I'm going to do. I created a niche market for solving the people problem. I was like, what are all
Nice.
the ways? What are all the things? I built a process around it. And so every single time we made it better. And, we do personality profiles, we do cognitive testing. We built a website to drive everyone to that website where they watch a video about what it's like to work there. We try to talk them out of it. And then we also tell them all the things that my team members are on video saying, why do they love working there? Right. So that's this balance of like talking them out
Sure.
of it. It's going to be hard, but then also it's pretty great. And you're actually hearing from the people on the team. And when we put testimonials in our ads, our response went up 500%. So we put testimonials from the team. That's another tactical takeaway
Yeah.
in your ad.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So just looking at it from that overview and saying, okay, this is my niche market. I'm going to solve this. And, having the right mindset that no, it's not hard to find somebody. You just got to be creative and you got
Mhm.
to like lay out that plan and execute it.
So, Billy, I actually did a post on LinkedIn about this. Like, there's so many people that the number one challenge inside their agency, or the number one thing keeping them up, is the pressure of the market and not having the right talent in order to handle the body of work, continue to sell while you're servicing, the amount of rewrites. And it is, I've been in the industry 16 years, and the one or two challenge in every survey with independent agents is, how do I find, attract, and keep great talent, whether we're talking about producers, we're talking about staff. I mean, that is huge. But how did you move from the guy who's doing it all to where you are now with a 21 step? Like, I'm
Yeah.
sure there were many, many failures, but how did you decide which staff in what order in order to create? So, is that what the process was that you built first?
Yeah, I mean, and again, it's a constant evolution. I think my mentality is constant, never-ending improvement. It's like
Yes.
what is it now? Thinking accurately about it. Where are we? What can we do to improve it? And keep asking the question, right? And so I think, if I'm a business owner and I'm listening to this, the one thing that I would say is, we created like an org chart and we were like, okay, and I showed you my org chart yesterday, but we created an org chart and then we also created a future org chart. So it's
Hmm.
about, that's what leadership is. It's about saying where we are now and
Yeah.
where are we headed, where are we going, and what do we need for to get us there. And then taking the entire organization that you have now and saying, okay, we have this org chart and then we have the people, but then also what are all the responsibilities that make up an agency? Like what are the tasks, what are what are the things that have to be done, and document all of those things, and then start divvying up who's responsible for what, and make sure that in your organization that everyone is responsible for something and that nothing is left off of that list. Because if no one's job is to take the food out of the fridge and throw it away on a Friday, then it doesn't happen, or it's the leader's job to do that. And then they're not focusing on what other things that they should be doing. And so having all those tasks on one thing and then creating positions. And I think this is the other really big key takeaway. And I wish I would have thought of this earlier is what is the pathway for them? And the pathway is designed to go through the positions that you need to fulfill the organization. And so we created the pathway of these roles, and then those roles build on each other. And so that those people have a pathway and you lit it up and you go, okay, here, follow me. I got you. This is where you need to be. Do this. And then there's validation points at each level. And so that's how you kind of come up with, what is that framework? So it comes from like a really good org chart, all of your responsibilities mapped out, and then start building out those people and then the development of those people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And you started with, I had a North Star. So
Mhm.
at what point in your, because the whole point is you got to get from the guy who does it all to the person who sees and is only managing the vision. Like that's a big, big journey for you. So when would you say you had the North Star, or when did it become clear that you were able to define it in a way that you could actually start putting this infrastructure in place?
Yeah. And I think, as I told you earlier, the beginning is always hard, right? And so what I was trying to do is in the beginning, I was trying to leverage my time so that I could focus on what is most important. And so at that time, I was like, I need to be out making the phone ring. And so I need to get people in here to do all the administrative tasks so I can be in my highest and best use, right? And so
Yep.
if you think
Yep.
about it, like in our organization, we have, the roles that we created now, and this is exactly how I would recommend somebody that's starting an agency to, you have the agency owner, and I would first hire a client concierge, somebody that can help you answer the phones, help you do the administrative stuff, help you learn how to do quoting, and then they start learning how to do the next role, which is junior producer, and then to become an agent. And so if you work that scale across, when they're able to do some of those tasks, then you're able to out there doing some more time marketing. When you have that agent level, that fourth position, they're then now doing the marketing piece and they're helping you do the marketing piece. And then you start to set the vision as a leader. And one
Hmm.
of my favorite slides and things to think about is there's like two circles, and it's like things that matter and things that you can control, and they overlap in this very small section in the middle, and that's what you should focus on as a leader. So at that point where I had all those positions there, I started thinking about who are the leaders that I need to develop so that they can step into these other positions. And so every year I was saying, okay, these are the responsibilities that I'm doing now because I've developed the baseline foundation underneath me. And then what do I need to be doing? I want to be doing more strategic, more visionary, more recruiting, more getting more people in. And so then I started putting these leaders in these positions to then start handling some of those things. And so I think as leaders, we've got to be out in front. We got to be setting a very, very high standard that never, we don't lose that standard of like, we're going to achieve at a very high level, and looking at like what are the weaknesses in your organization, and you can solve those weaknesses either by building a process, putting a great team member and letting them own that responsibility. And so those are just some of the ways that, kind of we've done it. And I think the other really key thing is, you talk about culture, and we have got great people. And where I've made mistakes in the past is I have let somebody else that was a B player stay on the team.
Mm,
And when I stopped letting B players, because most everyone is letting B players stay on the team, I stopped letting B players stay, and it completely changed the organization. And in my head, what I was struggling with is I was like, to your point earlier, Carrie, you're like, everyone's overwhelmed. There's way more work than we can actually get to. If I let this B player go, all this work is going to fall on these other people. And it's my fault. I hired this person.
yeah,
Maybe we didn't develop them. Maybe we didn't have the system. But what happens is when you have a bunch of A players, they're looking over and going, why is that standard not, and it demotivates them. And so
yeah,
when I got rid of a B player, it sent the message. They were like, well, they weren't that bad. Why did you let them go? And I was like, well, everyone else is an A player. And what ended up happening is we were 25% more productive without that person, because every A player went, you know what? You're right. Everyone around us deserves to be here, and we're all A players now. And that's an amazing place to be.
yeah,
And that took 18 years. That was not a slow journey.
well, it's hard to do too. Like
Tough.
if
Yeah.
you think about it, all you hear is it's hard to find people, it's hard to do this. But the reality is, if you have the right people, they want to be surrounded by the right people, and the willingness to elevate when you know that that is the standard and it's not going to be compromised by someone that isn't at that standard. It is super motivating. And the other thing is, I love that you use the nightclub. Nobody here would actually have a political cartoon that says, here's an independent insurance agency, and there's a line out the door of people that are trying to be employed. Like that's
Yeah.
the image that went in my mind when you said that. But in fact, that is what you're building. And because you protect your culture, it then is a self-fulfilling prophecy that people want to actually be there, which is it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant. But it wasn't overnight, correct? So tell me,
Yeah.
give me an idea, timeline from the
Yeah.
moment you realized I need to do this to where you felt like it was a well-oiled machine. Give me an idea of how long that took.
Mm. It was about 5 minutes ago that I actually felt that way. Like it literally, I'm saying like I'm never like, oh yeah, we're there, we have it, and
Yeah.
I'm always kind of saying, okay, what's in my blind spot? Like, what am I not seeing? Because like when I heard that statistic of like how many are engaged and disengaged, and I would challenge that with my team. I really feel, but you know what? I bet you there's got to be people that are not engaged. They're just
Yeah.
going through the
Yeah.
motions, and how do we correct that? And so, yeah, I mean, I think it's for us, as I said, like the first, I would say 3 to 5 years is just a grind. And then when you start having people, I think for me, it was probably about, 8 years, 10 years, 7, 8 years in when I started building a leadership team. So I put one of the people that were incredibly successful on my team, and trying to figure out all these new ways to challenge them. I remember saying, okay, I wonder if you could be $1 million producer. And he's like, well, I don't know. And he's like, I'm on it. Let me try. And then I was like, can you be a $2 million? Can you be a 3 million? And then he was a $4 million producer. And then, then I challenged him to get somebody to get a tattoo on his leg of our logo. And he did it. Like, that's a funny story, but you know, it's constantly challenging great people. And then, and I would say in the last 5 years, we've really started to, define the roles, and we have these new positions. And I will tell you that I'm going through that process right now where I'm making that person the principal of the agency, and that's not an easy thing to kind of go through. And honestly, that's why I reached out to you, Carrie, to kind of get some advice on, how does that look and how does that structure, look like? And so, we're pretty close. And I would say in 2025, I will only be doing strategic and developing the leaders. And that's kind of, again, that's my North Star. That's the championship I was chasing. And we chased a lot of things along the way. But we've always tried to maintain the momentum and get out in front and know where we're going, and then say, okay, we've got this. And now it's, this leadership team that is really, really powerful. They're very high character. They set a
Yeah.
very high standard. And so that's all happening really, really well.
So throughout the process of building out that leadership team, was there ever a time when you struggled with letting go of some of the responsibility, and how did you handle that and the transfer of responsibility to someone else?
Yeah. That is like for me, I am so like that North Star is so strong to not like be in the day to day that I had no problem
No
ever
problem
giving
letting
up of
go.
anything. Like, and I don't have an ego. Like, I took my name off the door. Like, I didn't want to call my agency anything. Like, we call it the city that we're in. And so, like, all this was by design. I don't want to be bogged down by the day to day ever. And so unless you have somebody kind of responsible and you're putting somebody else at the forefront. Now, of course, if I didn't have the right leader, I wouldn't do that. Like they
Mhm.
have to be, I have to trust that they're going to be able to take the
Yeah.
business. And so over the next 10 years, they're going to be able to take it where it needs to go. And I think, the only other thing we didn't talk about that I think of, like, if we're going deeper on this is the purpose, right? And so this is
Yeah.
something that, like, what is the purpose of an insurance agency? It's kind of like hard to have the like it can't be to sell a bunch of insurance policies, because that who could be less motivated by that? Like, that's not going to get anyone excited, right? And so
Come on,
so I
Billy. That's what we're all here doing. I'm totally joking,
no,
but
I
yeah.
mean, it helps to have the revenue and the
Yeah.
income. That all is great, right? But it's just not a purpose that anyone can get behind.
No,
And we
no.
we we've always had this core value of like making an impact. And in the last year,
Yeah.
we made a purpose to make an impact today. Which, so basically, it's making it actionable. We added that word today, and we came up with
Nice.
50 ways that they could make somebody laugh, feel valued, or make them
Mm.
smile or feel important. And we got some inspiration from the book Unreasonable Hospitality, which is a great book, by the way. I wish, like, it's the very short story is he runs a high volume restaurant, one of the top restaurants in the world in New York City. And he overhears some of his clients saying that they went to all the fancy restaurants, but they weren't able to get a street hot dog while they were there. And we got to leave for the airport. So, of course, he runs out to the street. He buys a $2 hot dog, convinces the chef to serve it. And he says, just so that you don't have any culinary regrets, here's your street hot dog. And they absolutely lost their minds, right? Because what did they do? He listened to what they really wanted, and it was making them feel valued. And so we use that kind of as inspiration. We have my assistant that is the wow weaver in the office. So she's constantly helping the team, send a gift card or send coffee or ice
Cool.
cream or anything we're denting the community with this whole idea of making an impact. And it changes the mindset of everyone. As you said earlier, Carrie, like if their mind goes free and is freelancing, they're going to talk about the market sucks and the carriers are pulling out, and we're overwhelmed and we can't get to everyone that needs to. Well, let's change the mindset. Let's try to focus on something else and get their mind on that, because it makes them feel good to actually do that. So that's been really rewarding. So when you have all those things aligned, where you've got good leadership, you've got great people and a system for finding them, you've given them a pathway, you've got this purpose, and you've got really good processes and systems, you can be a great CEO under that environment.
You're making me think of a friend of ours as you're saying that purpose. I can't tell you the impact of listening to Christos talk about what do you sell.
Mm.
Yeah.
And if someone listening hasn't experienced that talk or hasn't been moved by thinking about what do you really sell? What do you provide to your clients? Yours is an impact, or yours is, feeling valued. For me, it's simplifying and giving them confidence in the decisions that they're making in a place where they don't have confidence.
Yeah.
But it's not numbers. It's definitely not finance. It's not a budget. Like, yes, those are all the things we do, but we create confidence. Like that is,
Yeah.
there's just no two ways around that. And
Yeah.
if you don't know that, it's really tough to get as excited as, I mean, I feel the energy coming through the screen. I wish that this was live because that makes me want to go out and, listen and make an impact on people as well. But we're talking about an insurance agency, and there's a ton of energy and ton of positivity around it. And for those that don't know, Billy's Billy's agency is in Florida, one of the hardest markets that you could possibly think of by all measurements, right? I mean, it's not the easiest market or easiest place to run an insurance agency. So I think that there's great inspiration around if you think about your purpose and you do it differently and you allow your team to think about it differently, it changes the game. It straight
Yeah.
up changes the game. No
Mhm.
two ways around that. So
I
I'll be
also
buying
saw
that book for sure.
I think it was Bradley, but I could
Yeah.
be wrong, but someone recently did a post on social media um that was like, what does Gen Z and like the younger generations, which I am on like the older cusp of Gen Z, but really related to this post, is they want to feel like they're making a difference, right? Like, and I've found myself also repeating this in my head of like, I just don't want to make some rich old guy richer, right? Like that doesn't do it for me. Like I'm not going
Yeah.
to be working until 7 p.m. I'm not going to be thinking about work before bed. But if I have the chance to like make a little kid smile or take someone in like one of the worst times of their life, right, a claim, and make their day a little bit easier, say, hey, I got you. Don't worry about it. We're going to do it together. Like that's what really matters for me. And I feel like that's why young people will end up joining the industry and
Yeah.
staying and being happy
Yeah.
overall. So
Yeah.
I think um, that post really resonated, but also everything that you're building will retain young talent because you're making an effort to intentionally do that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that's very well said, and that's always what's on my mind, right? Like I'm thinking about, when you said that, Lindsay, I was like, okay, if Lindsay worked for me, we would have this discussion and it would be very detailed, and we have a system where actually we take you through a life plan before
Mm.
you do a business plan. So in that first 90 days, I'm figuring out all about what makes you click, what matters to you. Now you have to do some of the task stuff that are required in running the business, right? But there's a portion of the time that we're spending to try to figure out how do we accomplish the goals that you want. And that's so motivating. And it's a little bit personal. So like everybody on our team, I know all their goals, and we created what we call a one sheet, which is everything that you want to accomplish in your life on one sheet of paper. And I say, if you share it with, I teach them, I bring in a third party to teach them that, but I say, if you share it with me, I'm going to help you get there. And so
Nice.
if I focus my energy on helping you accomplish your dreams and everything that you want to accomplish in life, at the very least, however long you're with me, you're going to say, that was a great decision. I grew incredibly by being a part
Mhm.
of it. And,
Yeah.
but most people in our environment have stayed. And that's why we have almost zero turnover. And I think
Yeah,
it's
that's awesome.
because of all those metrics. Like I figure out what matters to you. Like
Hmm.
what matters to me, it doesn't matter. Like if I figure out what matters to you and you know with a clear vision what is important, then you will do that because you feel valued already, right? Like you're going to do those things. I don't have to even tell you, right? So
Yeah.
I think that's really important.
So let's
Totally.
talk about this because this is a journey to moving yourself out of the day to day and becoming the CEO. And honestly, we're talking about people 90% of this conversation because we are in a people driven business. We are in a relationship driven business, no question about it. But tell me, Billy, for those that want to be there, they want to be the CEO of their agency and they are where you started. They're doing everything. They might be the linchpin. What does the day look like of someone who's actually been able to evolve and get to that role? Tell me what that looks like.
Like currently now, what
Yeah.
is my day to day? Yeah. So
Yeah.
again, if I go back to that illustration of the things that matter and the things that you can control, and that's really where I spend my time. And
Yeah.
I'm very intentional. And I will tell you that one thing that I started doing about 8 years ago that was very impactful because I was able to do it when I didn't have the capacity. But what it was I go on an hour walk in the morning every morning. and I listen to something educational, inspirational, or whatever on the way out, and on the way back, it's complete silence. And what I'm thinking about is what is the most important thing that I should do today that is working on the business and not in it, and then get back to the office before I went into the location when I used to go into the office every day, working on that for 1 hour. If you figure out what that thing is and start getting ahead of it and start designing what your hiring, recruiting process is, as an example, or looking at your experience from every single part of the journey of a client, from looking them up online to that first interaction to what the proposal looks like to what the follow it. Like if you just spend some time working on what's happening in your business and getting out in front of it to figure out what needs to be taught and create an environment where you're constantly learning and build a system that happens in, now you're actually moving the business forward. And so I would tell people, just do 1 hour a day. If you did 1 hour a day on those kind of things, you will make a monumental change. I spend now 3 or 4 hours a day on that. And, and then the other thing that I'm doing is I'm spending about 20 hours a week in the community. I want to be the example in the community of a way to give back that no one else is doing. We're doing nonprofit makeovers, so I absolutely love that. And then my kids are 15 and 16 years old, so all of the time that I can spend with them is blocked, and it's in red on my calendar, and nothing gets in the way of that. And so my kids
Nice.
go on there first. Date night with my wife is on there. We have a family meeting every week. And so my priorities are very balanced. And then I have some time for friends too. I have we make pizzas with my friends on Fridays. I think I learned that from Zach. And so like just these designing your life, getting out ahead and going, what's my ideal schedule look like, and start building your way towards it. And whatever is in your way, you find ways to get those things out of it. And right now I have my secret weapon is my executive assistant. And she's been with me for 2.5 years, and it's probably one of the best decisions I make. I mean, I'm the ideas person and she's the executor. And so she has this list that never ends of hey, I want to do this, 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 this. And as an operator, an entrepreneur, you're constantly coming up with these ideas, and she just goes out there and executes them. So we're executing at a 10-time clip now with her there, and I'm not doing anything administratively. And here's the other tip that I will tell people listening is, if you are doing things that you're like, hey, I don't want to be doing this right now, this is not something that is in my highest and best use, you do it, but you teach somebody while you're doing it. Like if I'm going to do it, I'm teaching. And so for the last 5 to 7 years, everything I did, I was teaching. And not only teaching one person, but always having a backup. The worst
Mm,
number in business is one. If you've got, one
Yeah.
computer and it breaks and you got to wait for another one, or one printer, always
you're
have a
done.
backup. And
Mhm.
always have somebody there. If someone's on vacation, that person slides right in, and you got a system that just completely operates that way.
Yeah. I
Well,
can't take
Billy,
notes fast enough of what you're
I know.
saying, just so you know. I'm
I
thinking, oh
keep
boy, I got a lot of work to do. Whew, got a lot of work. Yeah.
I keep having to mute myself so I can take notes without having the typing noises included in the background. Well, Billy, I'm so glad that we had you on. You've been on our list to come on the podcast for an incredibly long time, and I'm so happy that we finally found the time to get you on and get this recorded. I know I've learned so much, and I might implement that hour
Yeah.
walk a day. Are you like an Audible listener? Is that what you
Yeah,
do? You do
I
books
listen
on
to
Audible?
Audible or podcasts, or just a few things. And I always plan my day out. The other thing that I have, and I know that this may not be on video, but these mind design things. So I have these note cards, and so I always have one in my back pocket, and I write the most important priority on that, and I highlight it, and I'm like, I'm not doing anything until this is done, and the
Yeah.
rest of the tasks. The tasks don't matter. Sometimes they're fun, oh, I crossed these out, but what matters is getting that done. And now I've won my morning because I've walked my dog, I've listened to something inspirational, I've helped starting to solve the most important problem, I've exercised, I've gotten some sunlight, and that just starts my day out right. When I don't do that, I feel like I'm missing something. And so it's just a
Mhm.
good habit to do that, and that's how you get out in front of your business, is by, working that way and thinking about things that way.
Yeah. Absolutely love that. I might have to implement that a couple days a week. I'm normally like a workout class type of girl in the morning. But lately Gosh, I don't know. I've just been dragging to get to workout class in the morning. It would be nice to just get out for a walk in the morning. That sounds like a good idea too. So I might have to work that into my rotation and listen to an audiobook. I love that idea.
Speaking of books, though, Billy, you've written a few. So if those that don't know and they want to hear more of what you have to say, can you run through some of the things that they could also, they're like, man, Billy is the guy. I think I need to learn from him. How can they engage, and what are some of the resources?
Yeah, so I wrote a book initially to raise money for charity like 8 years ago called Ensuring Your Peace of Mind, which I thought no one would read it but my mom, but like it actually did pretty well. And it's if people that are like looking to get into the industry, it's kind of like a very quick read to like learn what our business is like. But then like a year and a half ago, I wrote a book called Business Masterclass, which is everything that I learned about business. I'm very tactical. I want ideas of like I wanted to write a book where you're highlighting in your dog notes
Yeah.
and you're that's the kind of book that I wanted to write. And so lots of practical things where it's, how to build a referral based strategy, how to grow your team, all those compensation plans, like all that stuff is in that book. It's like, what did I learn?
Mhm.
And if I think about like the way that it's worked for me, like even a year and a half later, I've already moved so many things further along, but it's having those foundational things that
Yeah.
you can start from that make a big difference. So Business Masterclass, Ensuring Your Peace of Mind are both on Amazon. 100% of the revenue, not the proceeds, but all the money goes to charity. And that's kind of like what my mission is now, is just to have everything go there. And I was like, well, the other thing was like I was trying to save my time. If people were asking me questions, I'm like, all right, I'm going to write it in a book, and and we're going to donate it to charity, and it's going to help a bunch of people. So
Yeah, I love it. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your thoughts about the journey to CEO. I think many, many people will gain a ton out of this. I know I absolutely do every time we engage. And I look forward to that. I was sorry to miss seeing you in Florida this week, but I can tell you I won't miss another one. That's for sure.
awesome.
Thanks so much for tuning in to the Insurance Refocused podcast. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to hit subscribe and leave us a review so you'll never miss us. Want to learn more about how Agency Focus can help you grow your agency? Head to agency-focus.com or email Carey directly at carey@agency-focus.com. If you need to get in touch with me, feel free to shoot me an email at lindsay@agency-focus.com. Thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.